Hello, John. Can you hear us? He's connected. There he is. John Glen, everybody.
Wow.
Wow.
John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Wow, great.
You're
to speak
Peter,
to you.
right?
That's me.
Yes.
I'm Peter.
And John there as well.
I'm Jonathan. We met many years ago, Mr. Glen. We worked with you and Lloyd doing the Wild Geese documentary.
I vaguely remember you. Yeah, it was funny, really. I rather lost touch with Ewan over the years. I was quite surprised to hear that he died in 16.
Yeah, he was ill for a long time. I actually gave the eulogy at his memorial.
Did you really? I must have been abroad or something because I didn't hear anything about it.
It's very sad. Very lovely man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, did quite a few films with him.
John, I don't think you've met.
So how you doing? All right.
Oh, very well, thanks. You haven't met my co-author, Matt Spaiser. He's been writing about the suits of James Bond now for over 10 years. So he's.
Is he?
Yeah. Hello. It's very nice to meet you.
Well.
Okay, so we better get going, haven't we?
We better do. I know you've got it hard out, so we were going to talk about gold today, and I emailed John first thing this morning and asked if he'd had any time to talk about it. He says, "Yeah, I can give you half an hour." So I thought, brilliant. Let's let's interrogate John. So,
okay.
Well, John, perhaps we'll just start. How did you get involved with gold?
Well, I'd worked with Michael Klinger. I edited a film called Baby Love, and he'd always called me all the time, every time he was doing a project, and he was a very good friend of mine and a very good producer. And through him, I met Wilbur Smith, and there was some talk about my doing a film called Shaka Zulu that Wilbur had written, and there was, we had a very good working relationship. And then he called me one day and he said, what would you say? You work with Peter Hunt. What do you think he'd do a good job on the film Gold? And I said, he's really hungry for a job. He's, after Her Majesty's Secret Service, he hadn't done a lot. And I think he'd be a very good choice. So implicitly, of course, that would mean that I would probably be on as editor and second unit director. So it suited us all at that time. And we had a very happy and constructive relationship on that film. Gold was a very good picture, one of Roger's best films, I thought, and it had a superb cast. So that's the way it worked.
Yeah. And what was like Roger's like at the time? So Live and Let Die had already come out, and was that already out? Like it's been and done in the box office by the time you were filming Gold?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah, he was. Roger was, a very established world star by this time, and I think I'd worked with him on a couple of films. I'm not sure whether it was on that film, but I think it may well have been when I met him on the set when we arrived in Africa. I think he said, "Am I in your contract or are you in mine?" But maybe I got that wrong. But he certainly said it on one of those films. Yeah, it was a very good location. We were working up in Buffelsfontein, which sometimes was referred to as the arsehole of the world. You probably won't want to use that, but it was that time. It was the time of apartheid, and we went against the unions and everybody else to go out and shoot this film. And I suppose in our own way, our film crew did all we could to. We worked with some very good African actors and technicians. And we did our little bit in cementing harmony in South Africa at the time. Buffelsfontein, it came home to me. They used to have a curfew every night at 10 o'clock. And there'd be like an air raid siren would go, which reminded me of the wartime. Yeah. And he said, Oh yeah, he said it's the owner of the hotel said, "Oh, Mr. Glen," he said, "Yeah, that goes off every night at 10 o'clock, and no black man can be seen on the streets after that time, otherwise he gets arrested," which gives you an idea of how it was at that time.
Yeah, no, I bet it's crazy. And Jonathan, you saw this film just last night. You were telling me offline, hadn't seen it in 20 years. What was it like revisiting Gold?
I thought it was fantastic. I was just struck by how epic it was. You know, it's like Peter Hunt directed a full-on 70s disaster movie on £1 million budget, and I mean, you couldn't make that for £1 million now. It's stupefying. One of the things that these indie producers, Michael Klinger, Ewan Lloyd, all did that was so shrewd at the time was they always got the Bond people to come and kind of make their movies in between Bond movies. I don't just mean the actors, but people like John and Peter Hunt. And I noticed the credits were done by Maurice Binder. And, you know, it was a very, because Bonds were kind of the only action movies back then, it was a very shrewd way of making your movie feel kind of bigger than it was by getting those absolutely best people. I was blown away by it. I thought it was gritty. I thought it was quite violent. That surprised me. And I thought Roger was, like ridiculously charismatic, a proper full-on movie star. Very trim in it as well, wasn't he? He looked like he'd lost a load of weight in between the two Bonds.
Yeah, he looked excellent.
Yeah,
Roger always kept pretty fit, I must say, but he was, the whole cast there we had on that film were fantastic. I mean, it was wonderful to see, who was the old-time Hollywood actor?
Oh, Ray Milland.
Ray Milland.
Oh,
it was always a favourite of mine in the movies I saw as a kid, And Peter Hunt was always very keen to use some stars from yesteryear, if you like. And Ray Milland was very charming in the film. He played the father-in-law, if you like.
Yeah.
And he was very good in it. And Peter was very keen that he was kind of a rather untidy sort of guy. He smoked cigars, and the ash would fall on his trousers and on his shirt. And Peter encouraged that. And in fact, when I was editing the film, I printed out all the outtakes that hadn't been printed, and searching for any shots where the ash was more prominent. It had fallen off the cigar, and I remember Peter complimented me on these scenes with Ray Milland, where he was at his most untidiest, shall we say.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much smoking going on in the film as well. I think, wasn't Roger giving up cigarettes at the time and moving on to cigars, and he had a real beef about smoking cigarettes, right?
Yeah, he loved cigars. I think we were all smoking cigars at that time.
Yeah. Matt,
one of my favorite things about the film is the Elmer Bernstein music.
Yeah.
I think it's and then the songs of Don Black lyrics, so another Bond connection there. But I mean, Bernstein's music is just brilliant.
Epic, isn't it?
Yeah, he was a lovely man too, and he was very laid back and a joy to work with. And he was very technically very good as well. And he worked almost exclusively with click tracks when he recorded the music. It's a system where you have a click which corresponds with the certain action pieces of cuts of action and so forth, and you work out a kind of a common denominator. And he just it's all written on the score, and it keeps perfect tempo. And you don't really need to see the picture. You can shoot the scene with the music without looking at the picture.
Yeah.
Which is a great asset. I mean, it's pretty commonly used now, but it wasn't so common in those days. I was going to say, talking of Maurice Binder's titles, I shot a sort of almost like a documentary of the process of making the gold in the mine, the smelting process, the working of the face and all that stuff. And I did all these shots with an Arriflex camera, and then Maurice Binder got hold of my material, and he used it as a background to his titles, and he kept telling me off for using a shaky camera. And I said, well, I never intended these for your titles, Maurice. You've stolen my shots, so you have to put up with it. But he never stopped complaining.
Maurice was notoriously late for handing in the prints for the pre-titles. How was he on this one?
Just the same. It was always, everything was left to the last minute. But you had to love the guy, you know.
Yeah.
That he was a real character, very talented, but terribly disorganized.
Yeah. Well, also the ending, there was a really frenetic car chase on top of the mine. I mean, so you were second unit director and you were editor. Could you just talk about that? Were you there on the day for the filming of that and putting it together, obviously?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I spent I think 2 or 3 days shooting that sequence. I think it was just mainly one day actually, and I had Bradford Dillman. Peter Hunt was very good like that. He said, "Yeah, you take Bradford Dillman and do what you have to do." And I really worked him all day, running around all the dust on top of this gold mine heap, dust flying everywhere. And the camera was in the car, and I wedged myself alongside the cameraman, Jimmy Davis, while we filmed through the windscreen as Dillman being chased all around this gold dump. And after about, I don't know, around about 3 or 4 o'clock, the crew said to me, "Do you think we could have a glass of water?" Because it was really hot. It was 100 degrees on top of this mine dump. And I never used to, you know, obviously I was so preoccupied with shooting these scenes, I never used to worry about things like water. So we stopped for a while, everyone had a drink of water. And Bradford Dillman turned to me and he said, "I've got to tell you," he said, "this is the last shot I'm doing today." That's it. I poured him out, poor devil. But he was very, very good. And we had a very successful shoot. Yeah.
Interesting. Jonathan, I was going to ask you, there's a couple of sequences in this film that I feel like make really good crossovers and transition shots. Do you look at films, when you watch films like this, and take hints and bits and then kind of trying to impart them in your own films? Do you get influenced by these sort of films at all?
Yes, of course. But I'm also very aware that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. You know, I mean, one of the most remarkable things watching that film and all of those films from that era is that everything you see on screen is practical. Everything is real. There's no CGI. There's not a bit of computery jiggery pokery in it, which I love. I wish we still did that in movies. And I think one of the things that seriously impressed me watching it is how far Klinger stretched the budget. Because if you told me that, I mean, I read in multiple books that it cost £1 million. If you told me it cost £10 million, I would completely believe that back then, because it felt like a big studio movie. You know, and every single actor in it was pitch perfect in their performance. You know, it was beautifully edited. It's in case it is not obvious, one of the great things about having your second year director be the editor as well is that obviously as John's cutting, he knows exactly what he needs to get in the film as well that they might have missed. So it's a very shrewd mechanism using someone to do both those jobs if they can do it, which obviously, you know, there's no one better than Mr. Glen for that.
Yeah, interesting. And
well, that's very kind of you to say that. I was down the mine for about 3 or 4 weeks with my unit, shooting all kinds of hazardous stuff. You know, during the actual, you know, at the rock face, if you like. And we were shooting at about I think it was 6,000 feet below ground, which, funnily enough, was sea level. Couldn't believe it. But we got trapped down there one day. Every afternoon at 2 o'clock, they would blast the rock face for the next shift to come in to take the ore up to the surface. And we were down there. I was so busy getting my shots, I forgot the warning, forgot to look at my watch, and we got stuck down there when the explosions happened. And that was quite a scary experience. All the stuff was coming down off the ceiling. You know, if anyone suffered from claustrophobia, it would have been curtains, I think.
Well, in Roger's book,
the mine, the actual, the flooding of the mine, the flooding of the mine was originally intended to be done actually in the actual mine in Buffelsfontein. In fact, I did the blasting of the water coming through the face, the rock face, with an actor who was holding the drill, and I reassured him that the water dispenses itself very quickly. We had 3 tip tanks up on the surface, which funneled all the water down to break through into the mine. And they did 2 takes. The first take, it picked him and his machine that he was using to break through. It picked him up and threw him back. And I said to him, how did it feel? Was it okay? And he said, yeah, I think so. So I said, well, we'll do another take. So anyway, it was very effective. But the rest of the sequence with the actors in the mine, we eventually did at Pinewood Studios. We constructed a series of mine face down on the A stage, on the tank on A stage. And we recreated the mine down there, and it was a very, very good sequence.
Yeah, because I heard there was issues with the sand in the actual mine absorbing all the water, so there wasn't the water wasn't filling up, and so that's why then they relocated to Pinewood, and Roger said that he worked for free so that they could complete.
No, that wasn't the reason. It was
no.
Yeah, that wasn't the reason. It was impossible, really, to do what we were trying to do with the flooding water. And Sid Kane, the production designer, he was very cleverly designed the set on the tank at Pinewood, and we had pumps pumping the water around, and we brought the African actors over to the studio, and we did all the flooding scenes in there. It was relatively easy to do at Pinewood. It would have been impossible in the actual mine.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll have to email the Moore estate and give him a correction in the book. Well, because he said that he's got
I know.
Yeah, we've got it on tape now. Matt, you've been writing about this film on your blog. I mean, the blogs that you've wrote about the suits over the last 10 years. Star-wise, what were the most impressive things that you picked out from the film?
Well, to me, the most impressive thing is Roger Moore's double-breasted blue suit from Cyril Castle. With the cream Frank Foster shirt. It's that to me is just classic Roger, classic. Those are the kind of clothes that I just want to wear myself. that outfit in particular is my favorite. He wears a lot of checked shirts in this film, which he doesn't usually wear in other productions, and I think that maybe that gives his character a bit. To me, it makes the character seem a bit more. More like rough, more tough, more like more of like a country style guy. Less of the city, and it fits for the character.
Yeah, it does. He was after all, he was a mine manager in the film, so he wouldn't have been a city guy.
Right.
Yeah,
so
and I always think of Roger as more of that city type of person, but here he's dressed in some of those more with the safari suits that he wears again in this, like he wears in Bond, but he looks fantastic, and as always.
Yeah, he was a great dresser. We miss him badly.
We do. Yeah. John, there was also I looked online and there were some rumors that Spielberg was first touted to direct this film. Can you clarify that or demystify that for us?
Yeah, there was some talk about it. I mean, probably before my time or just before I started directing them. I think Cubby was talking about it, and I think they did approach him, and he would love to have done it, but of course, he would have had complete autonomy on on so many aspects that I think at the end of the day, and also he was incredibly busy, Spielberg, and so sought after. And Bond films, whatever they say about them, they're very economically made. They don't throw money away. It's a tough shoot, really, because you shoot for 6 months, and it's a lot of action, and action is very expensive to do. And we needed good action. And one of the secrets of the Bond films, of course, is that we never repeated ourselves. And I was sorry in a way when I saw that one of the latest films had this scene where Bond comes out of the sea. It reminded me of the scene in Dr. No with Ursula Andress when she made her dramatic appearance. And I think it's a mistake to repeat yourself. You know, I think with Bond films, you expect everything to be brand new, you know, original. It's difficult to do, but you have to work at it.
I think also, though, at the time, you know, in the 60s and 70s and the early 80s, it's hard to sort of remember those times now as well. But there were so many things in the Bond movies that people had never seen before. People weren't familiar with sharks and ninjas and volcanoes, and, you know, people didn't have foreign holidays as a matter of course. So that level of spectacle that those movies brought really did kind of wake people up to a whole new world. And that's part of what makes those classic Bond films so magical, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, you know, we were always looking for new locations, places we hadn't been before. And in Octopussy, of course, we went to India. And it was the first time that any major unit had gone to India, because it was pretty, bureaucracy was pretty awful there, and it was quite difficult. But we were very, Michael Wilson, our co-producer, or our producer, I think he was on that film, he went around Hollywood and he mopped up all the frozen rupees he could find from different studios where their films, they couldn't remit the money from India because of currency restrictions. And then he got a good deal. He went around and mopped them all up at half price. So, you know, that helped us with our budget in India, and meant that we were very economical there. And because, you know, you ask for a crowd in India, you get twice as many as you ask for. You know, you want a 5,000 crowd and you get 10,000, and they all want to be paid. And at the end of the day, you have to pay them. So we had a few problems that way. I remember seeing the accountant with his briefcase of his money clutched under his arm, scuttling away and running as fast as he could from the howling mob.
John, I appreciate you've got a hard out, and the line's just getting a bit choppy. I wanted to just ask you, when was the last time you saw gold? I mean, what is on the box at the John Glen house when you put the telly on these days?
Yeah, I haven't seen gold for a while, actually. A friend of mine sent me a copy of it. I'm trying to think why, but it was a pivotal film in a way in my career, in a sense. You know, I had very good relations with Michael Klinger, the producer, and he offered me a couple of films to direct, actually. And I wasn't available. I'd already given my word that I was going to do another film, and he couldn't understand it. Well, I said, no, I said, you know, my chance will come, and it did. But I was always very straightforward. If I agreed to do something, I would do it, no matter if a better offer came along. I think you have to be true to your word. It's very important.
Yeah. Well, John, it's been an absolute delight speaking to you. Jonathan and Matt also, thanks for joining us today. And was there anything else you wanted to ask John Glen while we have him for a few minutes?
You know, I just wanted to ask, so was working on Gold pretty much the same as working on a Bond film, or were there any big differences?
Yeah, it was very similar to working on a Bond film. I mean, there was a huge amount of action in the movie. Peter Hunt, of course, directed on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I was second unit director and editor on that. So we kind of thought alike in a lot of ways, and it was easy. And Peter was always very good at giving me the actors, you know, to work with. Some directors are very zealous about, you know, having their actors work with the second unit. But Peter was always very good. He'd been a second unit director himself. He knew exactly what the problems were. And it's a wonderful lift for a second unit to have the main actors on board, you know. So that way it was a very happy experience, and wonderful. The South African people and the people that worked in the mines were wonderful to work with, and they were all thrilled to be working on a movie, you know, because movies have been banned there from actually shooting in South Africa for so long. So it was a wonderful opportunity, you know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that first initial shot of the crane going down into the mine, and it just holds that shot aerial of the gap and the entrance, and it just kind of slowly diminishes and gets smaller and smaller, and you're just waiting for it to end, but the sound of it keeps rollicking along.
Yeah, it goes on for a long time.
I mean, there is no
It was
doubt
one
that
of
you're
the,
in
I
that
think it
mine.
was the first shot I think it was the first shot I did when I went down the mine, was that shot, and Peter Hunt loved it. And you know, it takes everyone underground. It makes you realize just the depth you're working at. So it served its purpose at the beginning of the film, and of course the music was wonderful as well.
Oh, yeah, I love that song. I'm gonna have to look that, because that got Oscar nominated, I think, didn't it? That was on there.
I think it did, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well,
yeah, gold character.
Again, thanks, John. Thanks for taking us down memory lane.
Okay,
Always a pleasure catching up. The book is in the post soon.
Yeah, good luck with the book. I hope it does well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to it. Don't forget to sign it.
Okay, definitely. All right. Thanks, Janine, also in the background there for helping out. And
pleasure.
And hopefully catch you soon. Enjoy
Okay.
Sunday.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.